There we go.
Good evening and welcome to the Lorain County Board of Commissioners, Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023. It's 4:30 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk.
This is the first hearing on the Roth Main Ditch and Lateral Number 1 restoration in Columbia Township. A petition was received from Jennifer R. Smith and others in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code 6131.041 on February 19th of 2023 from Lorain County Stormwater District, with all costs being borne by the district. Said petition is to clean and reconstruct the drainage system running from Mitchell Road, Columbia Township by excavating and shaping the ditch, remove obstructions such as sediment, trees, and vegetation, and altering the damaged and underside drains in order to restore adequate drainage and provide access within a new easement for county maintenance. This is original lot 79 and 82, commencing in Mitchell Road about 0.3 mile north of Osborne Road, thence running east, then northeast about 0.5 mile to north line of said Columbia Township Lot 79, which also is south line of Stone Ridge Estate subdivision as recorded in volume 90, page 16 of the county plat records. Resolution 23-183 adopted February 24th fixed the date of the view and the hearing. March 13th, 33 certified letters were sent to the owners on said view and hearing. March 21st and 28th publications were in the Chronicle Telegram. March 31st, Robert J. and Sally A. Anderson is located on an extreme edge of planned project and shows only a fraction of their property in the zone. The property is higher at that point and drains to the back of their property, as does the rest of the property, which is not part of the Roth drainage ditch. They are at the crest of Mitchell Road on the west side and will not benefit from any proposed work to be done and would be harmed financially by the proposed to charge them for such costs. They ask that their property be reevaluated and not be included in the proposed restoration. March 22nd of 23, engineers submitted the preliminary report and estimates cost to construct the petition improvement at $998,500. Engineers' opinion, this project is feasible, its benefits are likely to exceed its estimated cost, it is necessary for the disposal of surplus water, and is conducive to the public welfare. And as reported, and I see new people have walked in, there are sign-in forms everybody needs to sign.
Yeah, Jessica.
Okay.
Do you need to do a roll call, or are we good with that in a public
I can do
hearing?
that, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Mr. Moore,
Here,
Mr. Hunt,
Here.
Mr. Rydell. Okay,
and welcome back.
thanks.
We missed you.
Thank you. And then,
Okay, ready?
yeah,
So just make sure everybody sign in. If you wish to speak, what we're going to do is I'm going to have the assistant prosecutor swear people in who's willing to, anybody wishing to give any testimony, which means you'll be coming up to speak at the microphone. If you plan on doing that, please stand right now and raise your right hand. I'm sorry, I'm probably taking away your speech, Greg. No, go ahead.
Yeah, everyone, please raise your right hand if you intend to give testimony for or against the drainage improvement. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give is the truth? I do. You may be seated.
Thank you. From the engineer's office, do you have any comments in regards to today's hearing?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I have a brief PowerPoint, which you can turn on now, if you like. So, that's everybody can hear properly and so forth. So, as way of introduction, here's one of the several pictures I'll show you today. And I've got a brief 10-minute PowerPoint here. The problem is that rainwater collects on the ground at the lowest places it can find, some of which are shown in the photograph there. Unfortunately, there are also houses in these low areas. There are a lot of low areas in the Roth tile neighborhood. And unfortunately, even some of these houses have basements, surprisingly. So with that, let me start the main part of the PowerPoint here. So I'll say again, good evening, everyone, commissioners, folks. I'm Peter Zwick, who represents the Office of the County Engineer, and this is the so-called first hearing in the ditch petition process. It's been about 45 days since here in this very room, you commissioners viewed the drone footage. That was the official viewing. I know many of the residents also were here for that. And you may remember that at that time you saw a bleak, wintry landscape along the route of the ditch in that video. I have a 10-minute presentation today, and my objective is to fully inform the commissioners of the information that's contained in the preliminary report, which you all have. Teresa mentioned it, it's stated yesterday. Now, to refresh your memories and to show you some ground level conditions along the aptly named Roth tile and ditch, here are some photographs along the route that drainage water flows. And I'll be showing them to you starting at the high end near Mitchell Road here, for instance, and we'll go in the downstream direction to the northeast. And I think Mr. Roth is here. That's your barn in the distance, right? Yes. Okay, on the other side, I know that because it has big Roth barn, Roth farm picture on it, but you couldn't see the puddle in the foreground if I took the picture from the other side. This project is also intended to alleviate poor drainage, not just on the farm that you saw in the last pictures, but on both sides, east and west sides of Mitchell Road. Here at the Smith residence, they were one of the petitioners, and also across the street at the Niger residence. And here the problem is obvious, and this is actually a very short video. It might even have some audio that you can hear. This short video shows yucky gray water bubbling up out of the surcharge catch basin at the side of the road. That's a technical engineering term, yucky gray water. And let's see if this runs.
It's unusual on this windy day. The water is rising and falling in this catch basin on the west side of Mitchell Road. Sometimes it bubbles up. There goes some bubbles.
Well, that's the fun part of my job. The reason it rises up or bubbles up is because the water that rained on the ground, drained to the catch basin, is trying to get into the road culvert under Mitchell Road, and it simply cannot because the pipes there are already backed up for some distance in the downstream direction, and they can receive no more water. Certainly, the water cannot flow properly. Still on the west side of Mitchell Road where that catch basin was, but a few yards down, the drainage system functions very slowly these days. Whoops, sorry about that. Here we go. This is on the west side, just a few doors down from the Niger house. He's another petitioner, by the way. And the reason that it functions so slowly and it takes so long for the water to drain several days, as you can see that even though the sun is shining, this picture was probably taken a day or two after the rain stopped, and it wasn't a very severe rain on that particular day. But there are obstructions and restrictions downstream. Some are underground, some are in the ditch even further downstream, and they just prevent the water from draining out properly. Okay, here's that next slide. This isn't taken from the county's aerial map that you can find on the GIS website. The date of the image is 2002, and it actually shows acres and acres of water, which I've outlined in red there, or highlighted in red. Also, please keep in mind that these houses that are along the road there, shown amongst the red pooled areas, all have septic tanks, and all the septic tanks discharge or attempt to discharge effluent that's headed toward the Roth tile and the rest of the drainage system. But as everybody knows, septic tanks do not function properly when they are flooded with water. Back at the ground level and moving further east from Mitchell Road, the pictures will now follow the route of the private tile as it runs east from the road through private property. Here are photographs of some of the current conditions that need to be corrected. The first one is a so-called sinkhole or blowout in the Smith yard. You can see that the ground has disappeared and the marker stake shows where the underground tile is. The second picture shows a 12-inch pipe. The pipe is in okay condition, except the problem is it's practically underwater. It's much further northeast from Mitchell Road, but it's the kind of conditions we need to correct. Further down, the sediment-laden open ditch continues to run northeast through the woods. Here's two more pictures, standing water, and the other one is interesting. The other one shows the end of the original 100-year-old Roth tile that Mr. Kennedy is seen reaching to with his hand in the photograph. It's hard to see, but that's actually the old clay tile, the old original clay tile that's practically submerged with water and sediment. And if you haven't guessed, the engineer's plan will be to remove all the sediment from the ditches and to drain away that standing water. So the main objective today is for the county engineer to explain and answer any questions about the report, which we've submitted in writing with that date. Of course, I'll be glad to answer the commissioner's questions. Today, the county's engineer, our opinion is that only an extensive and carefully coordinated public improvement will satisfactorily resolve this persistent drainage problem. However, that's my opinion, or the county engineer's opinion. The issue, well, this is the ultimate issue for the commissioners to eventually resolve or to decide at your final hearing. This is the first hearing, and in the future there'll be at least one more final hearing. Our preliminary estimate of the cost was mentioned. It's $998,500, and our written report contains a breakdown of this estimate, including $0 of estimated damages. And the county engineer's opinion is that the benefits will exceed the costs of this project, and that the proposed improvements will indeed answer the prayer of the petition, or the intent of the petition. Okay, engineers have maps, of course. This is the benefited land area, rather. This is the entire neighborhood that will benefit from improved drainage if you were to vote positively or favorably. On this map, north is up. Mitchell Road also runs up and down. It's located just to the left of the middle of the map. And the 133-acre area that's outlined in purple will be served by the new drainage improvement. The route of the improvement is shown in dark blue color. It generally flows from Mitchell Road at the left to the northeast. It follows its historic route, as it has since at least 1898, when the original Roth, well, actually at that time it was the Roth ditch, to its end, which is officially referred to as its terminus, which is at the right-hand side of the image there, and it's highlighted in yellow, if you can see that yellow highlighting at the upper right. Verbal summary of the proposed improvements at this preliminary stage are the following: to clean and reconstruct the ditch and some pipes, including the proposed alternate. We will intend to restore the local drainage in the 133-acre area with residences, farms, and so forth. I call it rural or suburban area. It will be necessary to clear trees along the route, and we would like to daylight some pipes where practical. And of course, this going under the petition process, there will automatically be placed a permanent county maintenance easement. We think it'll be about 50 feet wide based on the preliminary. At this time, the county engineer proposes a slight change, which in the words of the petition process are officially termed the alternate, it's fully described in the written report, but I'll come around to that on the next slide. It was shown on the previous map in the yellow shade at the upper right. Basically, it's an extension of the original area as petitioned. It is absolutely necessary, and there will also be an easement in place there as well if the project were to go forward. Okay. All right. Our preliminary engineering analysis recently identified that need for the minor change or alternate in order to best restore the drainage all the way back to Mitchell Road. And as the slide indicates, that end of the ditch, which is behind the subdivision, needs to be deepened. And even though this part of the ditch sure looks pretty good in the photo, it actually takes up too much of the available fall or elevation from the whole drainage system. Remember, it has to reach all the way back about a half a mile to work properly. And in case you're wondering, or in case there's anybody here, somewhat deepening that part of the ditch in the first picture will definitely not damage the adjacent properties. In fact, it will provide slightly more flood protection for the lands both on the subdivision side of the ditch and the private property on the other side of the ditch that's shown in the first picture. And the second picture shows the end of that ditch, which is, you can't see in the first one, it's 1,000 feet away, and there would be no change to that triple culvert, which would be the so-called alternate terminus. And here's my layman's summary of what might happen today. If the commissioners were to decide favorably, and if they so order the county engineer to proceed, then our surveyor will complete his topographic survey. It was interrupted earlier. And then the engineer may proceed to finalize the engineering plans for the project. And of course, we can update the estimate of cost by the time the final hearing were to be rescheduled. And formally, if the commissioners would please remember to reference the proposed alternate terminus in your order. And then, of course, you set the various dates for the reports and hearings and so forth. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are there any questions from the commissioners? See, 10 minutes.
In regards to the area of the slide that you had red areas, so this alleviates those flooding that you,
Yes.
Okay.
Now let me qualify that. That's a simple answer. I can't raise the land on that private property, but I can allow the water that wants to drain toward the road to the roadside ditch. I can relieve that, and I can definitely improve the situation with this project. I can't raise the land. I can't make all the puddles everywhere go away, nor can I control how much it rains. It'll eventually rain really, really hard, and everybody will be underwater. Not just here, but elsewhere in beautiful Columbia.
but originally we had nowhere for the water to go. And I saw in the one slide, in fact, you have it tied in to another ditch, the yellow part, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It goes there today, but it's got to get through so many obstructions and restrictions that it takes forever to drain away.
Well, I thought there was an issue with the actual, the level, that you weren't getting the right slope. for the
Well, we
water.
have practically zero slope, which
Yeah.
is not good for drainage, and I hope to establish at least a minimum slope.
Okay. That's all I had for now.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Don?
Have him turn that off if you want.
Oh, I think you did.
Great, okay.
Do you have any comments?
Currently, we don't have enough information for Peter to finalize a plan and finalize a cost. We've made statements earlier that I feel confident we can still maintain, and that would be that for the construction of this project, we would be able to do so without construction assessments against anyone within the benefit area. That still holds. The other thing that still holds as of today is ongoing maintenance. The district has a policy of paying for the maintenance of ditches that are put on maintenance and suspending the collection of the maintenance assessment that people would otherwise pay if it weren't for the district covering that cost. Both those statements are still true today. I expect them to be true when Peter finally has enough information to create his final report. And we can then begin to improve the drainage, not only for the existing homes where we have flooding, but also to make improvements to the farm fields as well, which will improve yields and improve the value of the lands there as well. So,
But it's my understanding that the county doesn't have a very positive history of maintaining this ditch.
there is only a small section within the overall plan that was shown that is actually placed under maintenance, and that is correct. We don't have very good access to it. And it is primarily a tile, so there's not a whole lot of maintenance that is needed at this point in time. But if there were to be an issue, we'd actually have to be negotiating with someone to be able to get to that tile. One of them would be the one that would make the most sense is the one who's actually petitioning, because his property is not a part of the current area that's under maintenance. And then even if we do get things fixed where the county had stopped, it has a long way to go before it gets to an adequate outlet at Stone Ridge. So it is a very difficult project to maintain as it exists today. What Peter is proposing provides for much improved access, which improves our ability to maintain it, and it provides it with an adequate outlet that will allow the water to flow better, which will also make it easier to maintain. And then we'd have multiple ways in and out, be it from the subdivision to the west or Mitchell Road from the east, to be able to access and maintain the improvements that would be made.
And the 998,000, is that coming from our ARPA funds,
This is primarily stormwater.
stormwater funds? Okay.
But if needed, I would be looking at potentially moving some funding around for ARPA or whatnot. As we get a firmer number, some of the costs we've already incurred as well. There are more costs to be incurred. 5% of that number is also for existing maintenance, so that's a cost that we would be able to absorb within our district. And would be a future year out when that cost would actually be incurred. So it's a big number, though. It has me thinking.
Well, it's $7,500 an acre, so
Yeah.
it's pretty expensive. So
It is.
I don't have any questions anymore.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, thank you.
The townships, are they here? Do you have any comment, township leaders? Just a reminder, I think I've said this before, these meetings were usually at 9:30 at night. We've moved them to 4:30 so that, we could get more, or in the morning I meant, 9:30 at night. We might be here till then. Just to let you know, we're trying to make it at least more accessible for more people. The petitioner, does the petitioner have any comments in regards to this hearing? Yes, okay. Please come up, state your name and address, and good evening.
Matt Smith, 10955 Mitchell. I'm at the very west end of the project. I created a PowerPoint just to
Yeah, he'll-
help guys.
The-
Right there.
Is this it?
Yep, that's
Okay.
it. All right, so bear with me a little bit. He covered a lot of this, so there's some of it we can go through pretty fast. I just wanted to show the beginning and end of the drone footage as I see it. This is an overview of the system as it is now. Of course, you've already seen that. So all the assumptions I made here in this PowerPoint were from a previous report that was put together. It doesn't seem like it's very far off, maybe a few more properties included, what have you. But 22 properties connected. This includes all the stormwater runoff,
Come on in.
the septic runoff from 20 of those properties, and then all the stormwater from the street. I just wanted to show some of the routing. I mean, I think he covered a lot of this. I didn't expect him to.
No, that's okay. This is
That's
fine.
okay.
There's no such thing as not enough info, so.
Gotcha. Well, I wanted to show where the front catch basin is in the front, and then the routing of it. So you have all these things coming into it. You can see the arrows coming in from underneath the street, from the ditch. There was one in there, I don't know where it was coming from. And then one outlet to it, a 12-inch. So I did get a chance to take some pictures without it being flooded. I did quite a bit of work on my own to restore the collapsed pipe that was in the back, and paid to have it jetted out to get rid of get rid of the standing water. You'll see some of the more additional flood pictures here in a second. Just to give you an idea of where the storm lines are coming from, the drainage lines into the system itself. I just called it catch basin 1, and the one in the backyard, catch basin 2. There's the same sinkhole. There again, this has already been repaired by an excavator and jetted out. So it's flowing as of right now. The one thing I did want to show is there is an additional sinkhole beginning in this location right there, which is right above the storm line as it sits right now. And you already seen quite a few flood pictures, but just want to keep rolling through it just to show you what's happening. This is across the street at Ed's front yard, Ed Niger. And I think that's probably the same picture that you had in yours. We're pretty close to it. And this is kind of what remains after. With the system being mixed, there is a lot of things in there. Household chemicals, septic runoff, gray water, pretty nasty stuff. The mosquitoes and things. And we live in Columbia Station. I have no misconception that there's gonna be mosquitoes in a rural area, but we have to have, we spray for mosquitoes, we drop the pucks to stop them from incubating, and we do get some wonderful wildlife that likes to enjoy the floodwater. And this is where we begin to find problems with the water coming into the basement. Now, it's really difficult to decide on whether it's hydrostatic pressure or what have you. Since digging up the basement to mitigate some of the flooding that was actually making it into the house, it has really kind of subsided to a certain degree. I do have 2 pretty healthy sump pumps, and if you can see the green hose that goes down into the sump crock there, this was an exceptionally bad episode of flooding, so I put what we call a garbage pump, put it down into the sump just to keep up with the amount of water that was coming in. some more of our interior flooding. And I'm assuming that you copied the video. Yeah, there it is. I hope it's not loud. Just in case. I don't want to break any laser drums here. But that's the water that is pushing up through cracks of the basement floor. Now, I don't know whether if that is what has caused the cracks, but that's where it comes from. Luckily, there's a sump, my laundry sump right there that I'm able to utilize to get a lot of that water to go into, but it's a lot of squeegeeing and cleaning, especially when you're considering that it's the septic portion of the water and the health concerns that we have about that. Sorry, it's not more. I don't have a whole lot more. He did a really good job on explaining it. That's really all I have to say about it.
Okay, well, thank you for doing all that work and coming in and sharing, and
Thank you for the, for the pictures of the properties and
Yeah.
the yards. Yes, thank you.
no, I born and raised in a low floodplain. Nothing worse than a wet basement. Okay, thank you. Is there any residents wishing to comment? Oh, there's another petition. I'm sorry. No, okay, come on. Oh.
Jennifer Smith with 10955 Mitchell Road. What else did you need me to state?
Oh, you're fine.
Okay, that's all. Okay, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you guys again. I believe this is the third time I've been able to speak on this issue. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. You have heard a lot of words by now by looking at all these pictures that you have seen from the engineer and my husband. What you haven't seen are the pictures of the families who have to stay inside because their property is flooded. The kids that can't go outside and play on their swing set. The smell from the standing water, you can't see that in a picture. You can't see the sinkholes very well and how you have to worry about your animal or even a wild animal or your children falling into that sinkhole. You do not see the faces and the stress and anguish of two homeowners going downstairs and watching their house literally fall apart from water, pushing through underneath their floor. You can't see the pictures of the sleep-deprived homeowners who had to get up at least every 2 hours to check on flooding. It got to the point where we had to put our security camera downstairs facing the pump so that we could just roll over and check on it because going up and down the steps was getting to be a bit much. You don't have pictures of my husband in the backyard with his little light on his head in the middle of the night, checking on pumps to make sure that they are working, all the way back out in our yard to make sure they're working so our house is not destroyed. And you didn't see the shock and the utter desperation as he showed you one of the springs or I call them springs for lack of better words, popping out from one area to another and not being able to keep up on it. The pictures do show the great mosquito breeding grounds that are created. However, it does not show that all people within a 100-mile radius of getting that standing water eliminated who will benefit from the decrease in the mosquito population. Yes, we know Columbia Station has mosquitoes and always will. However, we don't need to help them. They're doing just fine without us. It doesn't also show the positive impacts that this will have on the watershed, which I would let Don speak to more because he would know more about that. And also in the picture, you've not seen this in the picture, but you're starting to see this in person. This is one of our last hopes at this point for some of us. We are finally at a point, it appears, that we can get this fixed properly, and yet have no cost to the residents. We strive to be good neighbors. We might not always be, but we strive to. It was always in the back of our minds. We really don't want this to be a burden on anyone. However, this is our home, this is our house, and it is literally being destroyed. And this is just seems like an amazing opportunity to finally get it fixed right, and save our house. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Any residents wish to comment? Yeah, just state your name and address and.
Kevin Kennedy, 10620 Station Road. In that picture where he shows you the ditch behind the subdivision, half of that ditch was on mine, so I've been through this before. And dealing with the county on that and the maintenance of it, I said never in my wildest days will I ever sign another easement. They come in there, they act like they own it, they tear it up, they don't fix it, they clear in dirt, they just throw it there. They clear out the logs, they leave them lay. They're workers. I've had them come in my backyard. I look out the window, they're standing there urinating. I've had it with them. I absolutely had it. And Peter's seen it. He's seen the damage. The one day they put an excavator in the bottom of it, and I just see another 400 and some feet of this for me. And I don't want anything to do with this thing. The only way I would agree to any of this is if you want to tile it all the way over there and put a retention basin up there and bring that water at me a little slower, because you're going to take all that water, and it's flooded before. That ditch is overflowed, and it flooded across the neighborhood. And it's going to do it more because you're just making that water come there much faster. And then those 3 pipes that Peter showed you, there are restrictors in those. They're 24-inch pipe, but they're restricted down if you go inside and look, because I've done it. They're about that big. And it's just, like I said, this thing has been nothing but a headache. You know what, I called the county and I said, geez, you're making a mess. You know what they tell me? Well, we got an easement. We'll do whatever we want. They're hitting trees with an excavator. Now, when we get back to where he wants to cut through, you're talking about taking 50 feet of my property for probably over 400 feet, isn't it? And probably removing, I don't know how many hundred of my trees. I'm losing a half an acre of trees. And then the other thing that's gonna happen, and I've already had this problem, that's gonna be the major ATV trail. I'll have nothing but headaches back there. And like I say, I've been through it. If you wanna bury a pipe, be done with it. Put a retention basin over there where it's flooding somewhere. Let it rain, give me 3-4 days for that water to drain out. That's a different story. I think that might work. But I don't think the plan, I've lived out there for 35 years. It's not gonna work, what you're doing. I've watched it rain and I know where the water goes. And it's just, like I say, you're just gonna bring all that water right on top of me in a bigger hurry is what's gonna happen. And it's gonna flood. It's, like I say, it's already done it. And that's the gist of it. But, there is no easement on that back there. Never has been, there is not. People were told to stay off my property and they came on it anyway. And,
Well, that's why I was referencing Don about, I think the county has a poor history with you.
well,
Did you say that's an
they
appropriate term?
started it.
I know,
believe
that's
me.
what I'm saying.
In the beginning, when they did the first ditch, I says, geez, if I can help these people out, it's the right thing to do, and that's what I did. And I've paid the price ever since. And, like I said, I've had it with it, you know. And like I said, I've had problems with the ATVs back there. We'll clear it out 50 feet wide all the way across. I'm gonna have nothing but headaches, I can guarantee you. And, I don't need it. Like I say, if you wanna come, you know, where that ditch is, bury a pipe, be done. You know, I can work with that. See, when they dug that original ditch too, they dumped all the spoils on the side, and that's still there. I've got probably 3 acres or more behind that. I can't even get to it. And I saw nothing in his plan to make me a way to get there. And, you know, without wading through it. And, you know, those spoils need to be removed. You put a pipe in that ditch, grade it, put a pipe in it and bury it. And like I say, and if you need a retention basin, you're gonna have to go over there. And I know there's more houses coming over there, because all those lots are surveyed over there. And, so how much more water is, you know, gonna dump on me? Because I'm at the other end, I get it all. So, all right?
Okay. Well, thank you for coming in. There's quite a few people that raised their hand. Does anybody else wish to speak that is a resident in regards to this issue? Well, let me,
They don't wanna talk.
well, yeah, but do I have the ability to continue a conversation with our engineer at this point?
Asking Peter or Don additional?
Correct.
Sure.
Okay.
Sorry, Don.
What we're trying, do they need to come up to the microphone?
Yeah, sure. Peter, can you?
Peter and Don? I mean, the resident made some valid points in regards to retention ponds and underground pipes. We're looking to move forward with survey work, correct? That's kind of what you're looking for
Yes.
today? Is that an option, to have that as possible as one of the ways to resolve the flooding issues? I mean, I know you're
A
looking.
lot of things are possible, a lot of things are expensive. That 400-plus foot tile, that would be the most expensive part, and that is not in my current estimate, nor is a detention basin.
I know, but I like to see numbers.
I don't have any at the
No,
moment.
no, I know you don't at the
Yeah,
moment,
yeah.
but
Don, do you want to
I think
amplify
there,
that?
my concern is, and I heard this before, is that the county, you know, doesn't have a positive history of maintaining this. And that's my concern. You know, I could say, oh, but we got new administration, that's not gonna happen, but in 35 years, I'm sure he's seen several different administrations here. So my concern is, there's I think a negative history here of this county performing. And so if there's another solution, I just wondered if we could have those numbers. I know you
Well,
can't.
I don't dispute Mr. Kennedy's feelings. There are a few things, specifics I would dispute, but the general idea is he has had a bad experience.
Right.
I will say that, can I get that PowerPoint back on, and so I can,
It's up to Victor.
yeah. Vic, did you hear that? So,
You don't like on the fly.
He's probably wondering which PowerPoint.
Yeah, which
yours.
PowerPoint?
yeah, the first one, yeah. So listen, so there's a couple of things, and it's,
Yep, is
there
that-
start to get to be complications, so bear with me.
I think Don got
So
it.
that nice ditch that I showed you, Mr. Kennedy is absolutely correct. It was built 20-some years ago, 15 years ago, when that subdivision went in. It'd be toward the end. Here, I can find it. And I'm referring to this ditch with the nice flow, the nice banks coming up here. It's the alternate, so it's toward the end, the one on the upper left there. Okay? So Mr. Kennedy is absolutely correct. His property line roughly runs down the ditch. His property is on the right. There's maybe 20 feet from the top of bank to the trees that the county does maintain kind of under a separate maintenance that the commissioners put it on 15 years ago. On the left are the backyards of all the subdivision houses on that. It's either called Springfield Circle is the name of the streets off of Glen Cove. Am I right about that? The trustees are nodding. Okay, so that happens to be under county maintenance. He certainly is not satisfied with the situation, and I think there's some truth in there, but look at it. It's not too bad. Now, the other part that he referred to, just so we all are on the same page, is that part in the deep woods with all the standing water, and you saw that in the video, the drone video, 45 days ago. Both of those pictures, for instance, are on the Kennedy property or pretty near it. I understand his brother owns some property and his brother-in-law owns another property. So I will say that if you compare the first picture to this, you can see which ones are maintained.
But
And
are
there's
you
a
also
main-
landlocking that property by having a ditch like that on the other side?
Well, he is correct, and I've talked to him about that.
Okay.
And since we last talked a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Kennedy, I noticed that he even removed some pipe, or I don't know that he did, but since 1999, when I saw it on a drawing, somebody removed some pipe on his property, and it was the way to get to the back corner, which would be on either side of that one of the two sides of that ditch there. Yeah, that's a possibility. In fact, the ramp, which I would have, which I planned to provide, that's what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, to get from one side to the other with, I guess, his own four-wheel vehicle or maybe some yard equipment or something. That's in the plan. No, I didn't say anything about it today, but that's in the $900,000. Don, do you want to amplify any of the other issues?
One of the biggest issues that we have, in addition to cost, is if we attempted to tile that stream is, while we don't have it, we haven't gone to the Army Corps of Engineers to get a formal jurisdictional determination. I strongly would guess that that stretch that would be tiled would be considered a jurisdictional water, so we'd be going for an individual wetland permit, which is going to add years and tens of thousands of dollars in study, plus hundreds of thousands of dollars in mitigation if my suspicions are correct. It's not going to be considered just a regular ditch. I believe, will consider it a jurisdictional water. Now, we can wait for the Supreme Court to rule in June and then make a determination, but in the meantime, there's already another set of definitions of what waters of the state or waters of the U.S. are that'll be litigated yet again. So from a concept standpoint, I think, everyone would love to tile their ditch. From a cost standpoint, it's expensive, but what really has me concerned is having to deal with Army Corps of Engineer and Ohio EPA on a 400 lineal foot stream impact and having to come up with 400 to 800 lineal feet of stream mitigation someplace else. That would be in addition to the cost of the pipe. So it would be very expensive.
I know, but I like hearing numbers. I don't like hearing expensive.
And well,
That's relative.
it cost us in 2017. It cost us almost $600,000 to do 800 feet in Eaton Township Park for stream restoration. It cost us about $900,000 in 2016 to do just over, I think it was 1,400 feet of stream restoration at the Our Lady of Wayside property, or the property we bought off of Lake Avenue. So those are two examples. Third one was about 800 feet again at Peak Preserve, and that was also another almost $600,000. And all of those occurred pre-2020. So rule of thumb, the way things have been going, that 600,000 would probably be closer to $1 million for 800 feet to add on top of whatever Peter's cost would be to do that. And that's excluding the cost for permitting and the time it would take. But an individual permit for a developer is well in excess of a year, probably closer to 2 to 3 years now to get just the permission to be able to do the work, which is only going to drive the costs even higher, because I don't think we're going to see inflation, even if it goes down, it's not going away, and we certainly don't want to see deflation. I don't know if that helps you at all with, no.
Nope. So if you're saying 800 feet, then we're only looking at 400 feet.
Well, the reason is typically when you're filling in wetlands, if it's a low category wetland, they want 2 feet or 2 acres of wetland for every acre you fill. Stream mitigation, it's not exactly apples to apples with wetlands,
Okay.
but typically it's at a premium.
So based on both your expertise, you guys don't think a tile and a retention pond is feasible or economically
Actually, I was
feasible?
gonna comment on that. It may not even be feasible to fill the ditch, and then build that pipe.
But we don't know.
Those reasons
you
and
know.
some
Okay.
related reasons, but frankly, that's the issue for the commissioners to decide.
Throw it out.
Sorry, you heard some recommendations.
Wow.
And the one thing, and I shouldn't speak for Peter, but I will a little bit. We really haven't looked at any kind of detention, but just kind of looking at the project from what was originally planned for to what we got to kind of where we've been looking today, I don't know that it would make a whole lot of sense, but it is something that we haven't looked at. But detention on some type of scale may make sense. That is one of the kind of thoughts behind Peter's desire to daylight some of the tile, is to create a larger area that the water could sit in, and so even if it's and let it slow down a little bit. So there's been some thought to those concepts, but as far as an actual detention basin, that has not. And I don't know how much more benefit that would get. We already kind of see detention, and it's a question of we'd have to do surveying and engineering to determine where to place it, what size, and then all of that.
Well, the
to-
issue
to
at hand,
figure it
there's
out.
really 2 things here. Number one, I don't want to slow this down. But number 2, I feel like we haven't really looked at the total scope and other options, if that's the case. I mean, I'd rather sit here, if we have to vote and make a decision, I'd like to see every option.
Yeah.
And say, hey, this is 8 million, this is only 900, thousand.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
If the board finds it necessary, you could recess the hearing and, ask the parties or order the parties to provide additional evidence, as you indicated, or additional information,
because if we don't,
and continue the hearing for
Right.
another date.
but I don't want to push it, I do not want to have this hearing go for 2 years.
Yeah.
So,
If the
Well-
board finds it necessary, you do have that
Even with
option.
the detention basin, and I don't object to building a detention
Right.
basin. I'm just saying that I had not yet built it into the project. We would need to do some additional.
Surveying, I was gonna
Something
say.
we
Well-
would like to have soon.
Well, today I thought you were looking for us to move forward because you really can't provide us with the appropriate data.
So, in the missing component is to survey that ditch, that's the missing link.
Correct?
And as Mr. Peltz, I think your motion could say to prepare surveys, plans.
And alternative forms
So
of,
we're asking for that order today.
yeah.
If the board decides to proceed with the project survey and design, part of that would be the board instructing the engineer to obtain surveys.
Yeah, obtain surveys and alternative forms of,
Well, that could, there's 2 different avenues. The board could recess this hearing
no,
and
we're not
ask,
doing that.
ask to provide the additional evidence or the additional information. Or if the board so chooses, they could proceed with the survey and design in effect of, granting or moving forward with the petition. And then ordering the surveys as such.
But the surveys are gonna be, oh, I'm sorry. No, the surveys are, I don't wanna vote today on a survey with one train of thought, I guess. I'd like to have, for moving forward,
Put it in your motion, if I can
Mr. President,
That's
that was, when you started talking about the survey, Peter, so can we include in the motion that we would also like in the survey the option of detention basin
And
to be included in the survey?
The
That's
board,
it. We're just asking for the option and
Because
to
we're
look
not-
at it as
we're
an
not-
option.
the board could.
Okay.
Correct, the board could, and that would not be altering in the Termini in any way. Correct, Peter?
I don't like all the eyes looking back
Well, I
and
would-
forth from everybody up here.
Mr. President, I
Yeah.
think
think-
the county administrator's been wanting to weigh in.
I
here a
know, well,
little
he's,
bit.
he's had this happen a few times, I guess, so.
Without the survey, we can go no place.
Well,
And
yeah.
Really, we need the survey in order to, and I think that the discussion at the next commissioner meeting that we have on this, I'm sure that there'll be some alternatives that both Don and Peter will have. But without a survey, we can't move forward in anything, and drawings or even taking a look at it, to see if it does work.
Yeah, I think we agree to that. The bottom line is if what type of survey,
Well, it's the land. I mean,
Right.
coming from North Ridgeville, and I've lived there for 50 years, and we have never fixed a underground pipe that worked long-term. We've always daylighted, and we've worked on daylighted pipes. And those of you that understand North Ridgeville and Gina and Pitts, since February of 2014-15, when we had those tremendous floods, that area has not flooded, because we've worked on daylighted ditches and worked it. Where it became backyard ditches or backyard pipe, we've talked to the community as to how there is, and I don't know of any backyard pipes that we have actually taken care of, because you get sewer jacks, you've got sinkholes that you've got that you cannot long-term maintain. In fact, in my home in Ridgefield right now, in Bob Schmidt's home, I've lived there 26 years, and I've got sinkholes in my backyard from the pipe that is broken. And that is the responsibility of the homeowners association, in my case. And what they do is they just put 57s in it, and they don't fix the entire pipe.
no, I understand. I think what we're looking for is just to have these options presented to this board prior to make a final decision. Is that what,
And that's reasonable, Mr. Peltz?
So we're not gonna recess to provide additional evidence or information. We'd be ordering a necessary survey to outline, not the alternate termini, right? An
Well, that's-
alternate
that would be one of them.
or route or course, correct? I mean, is that how you would define the proposed tile?
I think,
I think detention basins are permitted in the code as any of the drainage improvements. We call it a ditch, but it's generally a drainage improvement. So if the board, from my understanding, if the board were to order the engineer to investigate an additional alternate, the detention basin, which would also require some extra surveying, which is not a big deal. We need access to the property. Frankly, Mr. Kennedy told us that he did not want us on the property, our consultant on the property. So that's all we would need is direction from the board. And like I've said a couple of times, the board makes these calls. I'm here to give you information. If you ask for information, in fact, Greg, there's even a spot where it says the commissioners can ask for additional reports and stuff like that. So
That's what I was.
my understanding is
Yeah,
that
that's
that's
what I
all
was-
part of the process.
which is, I think we're all on the same page, at least the two of us, right? The three, I mean, we're just not saying it. The bottom line is we want you to move forward. But we want to make sure all the options are reviewed.
Mr. President, this
I
is
see,
a big
Mr.
project.
Yeah, I see.
Pardon?
Oh, he was raising his hand.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can come on up. I mean.
Sorry.
No, I saw him.
See what he thinks.
Here's what she's.
Well, he already saw.
Oh, you mean?
Good afternoon. My name's Ken Roth. I've heard a lot of testimony. I'm not opposed to the project as such. However, I'm not really sure how this is going to solve the problem. Back in 1876, when my great-grandfather bought this property, there was a ditch there. And back in the day, the farmers needed the ground in order to survive. It was an agricultural, agrarian society. He and the neighbors petitioned to put this tile in. They had a fellow that came and spent 2 years with a mule and stayed on our premises doing that by hand. If you think you've got $1 million ditch digging project, I'd wish I had his name and number, but I think he's long gone. But what we're seeing here is same thing that's happened in Ridgeville. Over the years, it changes from an agrarian society to they need the houses. The old farmers die without anyone who wants to farm. It is sold. Now that old tile, it worked pretty good, but not really. It did keep it dry all the time. You know, it was still had places where there was water standing. So my granddad and Mr. Walker, who has also had the property farther out, it was tiled. And then when the farmers quit, it grew up into woods, just like Mr. Kennedy's got. But the old timers paid it out of their own pocket, maintained it because it affected their livelihood. The people who come, buy lots, build houses, have no concept of what it's like to live out in the country. They think they've just moved into a fantastic situation. They think that it doesn't take any maintenance, doesn't take any investigation on what they're getting into. And now all of a sudden, we've got a person who's unsatisfied, who didn't do due diligence, is suffering the consequences. And this is going to continue through Columbia. You can see it's exploding out there, but these same problems are going to exist. One alternative that came to mind, the petitioner's property is obstructing the water. Maybe we need to take the house and dismantle it and just clean that area right there. It seemed to be a lot cheaper than doing this. And I don't think it'll, well, it would save the county and the taxpayers a lot of money. So it's something I think you should consider. I hate to see something like that happen, but you know, when I throw myself in front of a train, it's not the train's fault. So, food for thought. And I'd spent a lot of money myself repairing that tile and seeing to it that not only myself at the time that I was farming, but all the other people who water drained into the watershed, you know, benefited from my my actions. I also realized at that time that, as he had talked here, that if it's not maintained properly, a tile is a great thing as long as it's able to work the way it should, but a tile costs an awful lot more than digging a ditch. So ended up digging a good portion of the tile up because it had been crushed and broken down over time. That way that the property could be, somebody with a backhoe could come in and clean the darn thing out. So that's one of the alternatives you have to consider. But now we've got the problem where the the flow is so slow that it silts in. So it's actually got to be maintained once every 3 or 4 years rather than once every 20 years. I had another point I had in my mind, but I can't remember what it was right now. So I apologize, and thank you for letting
Nope.
me talk.
Thanks, Mr. Roth. Does anybody else? I know you wanted to say something. Was he sworn in? I think he did. Okay. I know we're kind of going out of order, but, yeah, I know, so, which is fine.
Alex Cole, 10978 Mitchell Road. I just want to say I've been on Mitchell Road for about 9 years now almost, and much like everybody out here, we deal with the water. We make small changes to our own properties to improve them, whether it be adding drain tile, cleaning our culverts out, cleaning leaves out. And I think based on what's been presented and what's going to be investigated through a survey, I'm not a civil engineer. I think you are, and I saw a P on there, so I think he knows what he's doing. And I would say that the 22 properties that are affected by this, he's going to do his best effort to figure out how to make it the best for Mr. Kennedy back there, the Smith family, the Niger family, my family, the Roth farm. I think whatever's proposed, he's not going to try and basically make it worse for somebody and better for somebody else. We're all trying to do what's best for the 22 properties in that area. And it's not like we're living in houses that got popped up 15 minutes ago. I mean, my house was built in 1969. I can't speak for other houses, so it's not something that everybody just moved in all of a sudden and has a problem with the area. These are houses that have been around for 40, 50, 60 years. The house down at the corner has a cornerstone 1883, I believe, or something like that. So it's not like we're dealing with a brand new development with these 22 properties that are affected. So I would say that, there was, historic evidence of flooding in the area when everybody bought the houses they lived in. Everybody's complained about the water in some capacity or another. I think we finally have an opportunity here to fix this issue and hopefully not cost any of us affected by the area any assessments from what we've been told. So I think we let the engineers do their job, present what they believe is the best option for everybody affected, and we move forward and see what comes of it. So
Okay, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Commissioner? Oh, okay. Anybody else? Oh, okay, sir.
He wasn't sworn in.
I know, he can get sworn in when he gets up here. Yeah, come on up. Come on, swear him in. You kind of came in late, so they're going to have the attorney swear you
Hello,
in. If you
my
don't,
name's Ed Niger.
Sir,
You have to
if you can, I want to swear you in. Yeah, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the whole truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, I lived at 10934 Mitchell Road for over 40 years. I've dealt with this problem. The thing that concerns me is the fact that all the septic systems on Mitchell drain to the roadside ditches. So when the ditches flood, effluent comes back on your property, not just rainwater. Effluent. And if the kids get sick, God help the township and the county, because somebody's going to be in a big lawsuit. And I wouldn't want to see that. I know when my 5 kids were little, they never played in the water in the summertime. They ice skated on it in the wintertime, but they wouldn't play on it in the summertime. I wouldn't let them. And I cautioned people that moved in next to me that have young children, don't let them play in the water, as they could get sick. And if one of them does, and God forbids one of them does and one of them dies, we're all in a world of hurt. So it's not just rainwater we're talking about. it's a little more dangerous than rainwater. Because when you're talking effluent, you're talking bugs, typhoid and everything else. So, but yeah, I've been there for 40 years and been dealing with it. The worst it was ever when we had Hurricane Sandy come through in 16 inches of rainwater in 24 hours. It was 6 inches from the floor joists in my house. I have 3 sump pumps in them. They're $1,000 a piece to try and keep the water out. So that's just a little aside. And I was a township trustee for a while, so I know that they're still allowing some of the septic system draining into the ditches where they're building houses, but they don't have sewers in there yet. And we're getting a lot of new houses. I'm sure you know about it. Well, thank you very much for your time.
And thank you for
Appreciate
coming in,
it.
sir.
Mr. Chairman, I just had a flag.
Okay, Mr. Roth. Figure the ditch named after you, come on up.
You have to come up, though, yeah.
With respect to retention ponds that were mentioned, I don't think that would be solve the problem just by, if you look at the beautiful pictures of the waterfront property we had here, Mother Nature made a retention pond. The water runs in, fills it up, and later it goes out when it can get out to an outlet. You'd be doing the same thing, there's no outlet there for it to go to. So I think that is counterintuitive.
Yeah,
Just
that's
a
okay, thanks. What I'm trying to do is just get cost analysis, and I don't like it when someone says, hey, it's gonna cost a lot. Well, there's no definition of a lot, or it's, so. That's all we're asking for. It's, anyone else? If not, in order to proceed, this is where I have to ask you for some help here. Do we make a motion and what do we discuss so they can proceed? Or do we close the hearing first, or?
You can make a motion to close the hearing and then decide whether or not to proceed with the project survey and design.
Yeah, which we still, when we close the hearing, we still have, there'll be other hearings in which to decide on how we move forward, correct?
There's the final hearing, correct,
Which is
still,
in
so.
December or end of November.
No, we should be,
September 22nd.
Okay,
and that would provide for the
Oh,
full.
no, I'm sorry. The final hearing
November, I thought.
would be November 21st.
Yep.
Oh,
It's rare, but it's right.
there's you got the.
Sorry, yes, you were.
That doesn't happen much.
Yes.
But that would allow for the engineer to complete the final report and have the final presentation to the board.
Okay,
And then the board could, if they decide to, if the board so chooses to decide to move forward with the project survey and design, the board could order the alternate termini that was proposed by the engineer's office and order what appears the board may so choose, the alternate tile or basin as well.
Okay.
So the board can make alternates
okay.
or alternatives.
Then I make a motion to close the hearing.
Second?
Discussion. Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mr. Hung?
Yes.
Do we move forward, and do I let you read this with the changes?
I mean, if that's what you want to do, I don't, are you okay with, or do you want me
But
to
did you
just?
see the changes that you ran by the
No, I didn't do
prosecutor?
that.
Well, so I think then,
Well, that's kind of what I wrote in there.
Yeah, well, he looked
Okay.
at it over.
Are you okay with that?
yes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And we can change that as well.
And then just tell me what I got to do here.
Well, we can do that in the resolution. I could take
Yeah.
a look at that. But presently now before the board, since we've closed the hearing, the board needs to vote whether to decide to move forward with the project survey and design with the alternative termini and with the alternative of the tile and basin as well. Considering whether the proposed improvement is necessary, is conducive to the public welfare, and that the proposed improvements, it is reasonably certain that the benefits of the proposed improvement will outweigh its cost.
So moved.
Second.
Very emphatic.
Well done.
I am not gonna repeat that. Any discussion?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
So we have to include in there that we're going to accept the county engineer's,
Alternative Termini,
right, and report.
Yep.
Which
correct.
is scheduled for September 22nd, Peter.
And
Okay, so,
then we'll also include in there, this is the part that you will send to the engineer's office, the necessary surveys, including the tile and the basin.
yes. Got it.
And you could include that tile and basin too as well in that last portion that you showed me,
Yep,
or that I wrote on. Okay.
got it.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to make that mention out there, so. Anything further? Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Commissioner Hung?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other business? Clerk's report?
Tuesday, May 30th at 5 o'clock, we'll have a commissioners' board meeting. And then Friday, June 2nd at 9:30, we'll have a commissioners' meeting.
Okay, move to adjourn.
Second?
Discussion? Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Commissioner Hung?
Yes.
We're adjourned.
You were close on your hour guess.
I tried.
Thank you all for coming in tonight.